أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters. We're back with the subject of Walāyah. Today's the fourth lesson, I believe. And what we're going to do is we're going to continue from where we left off. So we can have a brief review of what we went through last time. And then we'll move on to the rest of the lecture. So we were talking about Walāyah and the meaning of Walāyah in the Quranic sense. And basically we talked about the different relationships that God had severed. Pre-Islamic relationships. So people were connected to each other through blood ties. And they were connected with one another through worldly relations. So basically, you had a monarch, you had a king, you had a tribe leader, you had family members, you had blood relations. And people lived their lives according to that kind of that basis. So if you're a member of a tribe, then you are loyal to your tribe. You do everything to protect your tribe. One of the reasons why some of the Arab tribes were, burying their daughters alive or killing them, is because the daughter was, considered to be shameful for a woman to be taken by another tribe after they attack them and prisoners or slave women. So if there was a weak tribe, then they would rather not have women being part of it because it's like taking their shame away. And honor away. So relationships were based on things like that. And there's a famous saying in the Arab world where tribal members used to say that I would defend my tribe even if they're on the wrong. I'll defend them with my blood. So he's ready to die or she's ready to die for the tribe, even if that tribe is wrong. Because loyalty to the tribe was the most important thing. Your existence was dependent on that tribe's existence. Your protection, your wealth, and everything else is according to that social system that they've built for themselves. God came, and when the Prophet ﷺ was sent, and the Quran was revealed, God wanted to change the types of relationships that people had. This tribal system was to be changed. I mean, any system that you build, any system that you conceptualize, is going to have to be based on some sort of principle or foundation that you believe in. So if you believe in honor, dignity, tribal superiority, then you would develop a system based on tribal hierarchy, or you have a tribal system running a society. If you believed in, let's say, the Islamic system, that God is involved in everything in this world, the tribes obviously didn't believe that. God was just a creator, so he wasn't really in the picture all the time. Islam came and put God in the picture in every single detail in their lives. And once he did that, he began forming different types of social relations with the individuals, between individuals themselves. Tribes are to be eliminated. We don't have any tribal hierarchies anymore. We don't have any tribes anymore. We don't see that there's an importance for loyalty to a tribe. In the Quran, in numerous occasions, it attacks this concept. And it tells people that you should be loyal to God and the Prophet, or you should love God and the Prophet more than you love even your own family. So even blood relations was diminished. The importance of it was diminished in the Islamic world. So the Prophet was trying to separate all relations between people, even their blood relations. So not just their relation with the tribe, but even a father and a son, and a mother and a son, and a father and a mother in one another, husband and wife, basically. Brother and sister, siblings. Even those were severed to a certain degree. What happened then was Islam, the Prophet ﷺ, through God, began building a new form of relationships between the individuals. And within that forms of relationship, there's the family relationship as well. But what takes precedence over everything else is God. So basically, if we want to draw Walāyah into, put into a diagram, we'll put it, we can represent it this way. So if we take this as all of existence and all relationships that exist in existence, we can call it the system of Walāyah. Whether you are connected to God or if you're connected to Satan even, the system that governs relationships in this world is a system of Walāyah. Basically unifying or becoming one, uniting yourself with whatever you are loyal to, whatever you're connected to. So we have the people of the left here. They are the followers of the Shaykh, of the Shaykh. Well, Satan is wali of these people. And on the right-hand side, you have God as the wali of the believers, those who are illuminated. And here you have the dark individuals. So this will be discussed further in the third presentation. We're going to fill this up with different categories. Even here we have different labels that we're going to use to show what kind of system the imams we're trying to present from this world. Types of relationships that exist between the people themselves and with God as well. Now, if we look at the Islamic theory and we look at the focus words that exist in relation to God and Shaitan, we see that one keyword that's shared between both of them is Walāyah. So when you look at Shaitan, you understand all these keywords that are connected with it. So if you look at Satan in the Islamic world, there's enmity. Aduwwun lakum, God says. So he begins putting certain concepts in our minds so that we can experience a specific feeling. Shaitan is an enemy. Once you say Shaitan, enemy comes in your mind. So enemy is someone that you have to combat. You have to fight. You have to go against. Forgetfulness. If you follow Shaitan, then you forget the promise that you made before you came to this world, which is testifying that God is the only God. This is forgetfulness connected to Satan as well. Punishment is another concept that's connected to Satan. If you follow him, you deserve punishment. Fear. Those people who have fear in this world. Part of the reason why you have fear is because you're following Satan. You're not following God. If you were following God, you would have tranquility. You would have guidance. You would have reward. You would have remembrance. You would have friendship. You would have goodness. So these are keywords that the Quran was trying to develop in the Muslims' minds. These obviously affected the way they live. That's why if you talk to Muslims nowadays and you see Satan in front of them, very different reaction or conception of Satan than if you would mention Satan in front of a Christian, for example. Even though they might share certain ideas. But the scene that God created in the Quran with what's related to Satan and Allah and Walāyah is something peculiar to the Islamic system of belief. So here we have a struggle. We're struggling between becoming awliya of Shaitan and awliya Allah. And this struggle is from pre-existence, pre-temporal existence, until the afterlife as well. But the battle happens over here. So basically, when I say the struggle is the battle, then it occurs in this world over here. Pre-temporal world, pre-physical world, let's see, we are all submissive to God. After we die, we might be all submissive to God because we realize the truth, even though we had followed Satan in this world. But the combat or the battle is over here. And over here, every moment we're fighting between being dragged towards being followers of God and followers of Shaitan, being Waliyullah or Waliy Shaitan. And this is the scene that Islam has created for the human being, so that the Muslim, when he's born, when he wakes up in the morning, and he's wary and self-conscious about his Islam and his faith and his belief in God, then the moment he opens up his eyes, that struggle begins. Every moment for him is a struggle in his decisions, in his behavior, and in how he functions as a human being in his life, between becoming a follower of God and what he does, doing good, remembrance and living a tranquil life, or doing evil and therefore suffering and making others suffer as well. So Wilayah in the Quran is used to establish the foundation upon which the Islamic community should be built. I become someone who befriends you. That friendship should be based on Wilayah, not on anything else. Wilayah always takes precedence over anything else. So it means friendship in the literal interpretation. And Satan is the enemy. And what Islam was trying to do here is there was a problem back in the pre-Islamic times called Asabiyya. A lot of hadith and al-Kafi in the Shi'i text and in the Sunni text also that deal with Asabiyya. The Prophet condemned Asabiyya, basically having affiliations and blind loyalty to your tribe and your tribe members. This is very condemned. The Prophet was trying to sever these relationships, basic connection between each other based on wilayah. That's why if you go to like home, for example, there are occasions where the Prophet tried to make brotherhood between different members of the community. He was trying to establish a Hujjah. Hujjah was technically a relation by blood, not a brother of someone unless you come from the same parents. But the Prophet, when he came and suggested this and he implemented it, he basically said that brotherhood could be a spiritual. And that's more important than your brotherhood that happens because of the physical conditions that you were born with. So he was trying to establish a society that has a spiritual connection with one another, transcends blood, transcends tribal affiliation, so on and so forth. Now, if we look at tribal affiliations or blood relations, even their importance, even if there was importance that was placed on them in Islam, we're not really sure whether that's something that God legislated and wanted, or something that he just accepted to be there because that's how the society ran and God didn't have a problem with it back then. So, I mean, this is a question. I'm not trying to reach any conclusions, but how important is it to preserve a blood family? Is it something that religion asks for to be existent, and the society is founded upon families that are connected to each other through blood? Or is it something that Islam doesn't mind losing and forming relationships between individuals without all these family bonds that we've imposed upon ourselves as societies? So basically what the progressives are doing now, saying that family is a social construct. My relationship with my brother, I'm calling him brother because we inherited this idea from Christian faith system, right? Father and mother. Once I say father, I'm assuming a specific role for that person in society. It implies that he has to be some sort of thing in society. Certain obligations. The father must raise his child. The child must not speak ill to his father. All these norms, all these ethical norms that we impose upon each other. Is that something that Islam wanted? Or is it something that it doesn't mind doing without? This one Korean movie, I think it was about 2 years ago. I watched it over here. I forgot the name of it. But basically, there's this very poor family that lives with one another. And you don't know that they're who they are at the beginning. You know that this is the father, they call him father, mother, sister, brother, and everything. They all do their own thing. And then they find a child healing or something, and they take that child and they add it to the family. So you think that that child is adopted. Towards the end of the movie, you figure out that none of these people are related to each other by blood. Each one of them was either deserted by their own family members. One family was like embarrassed, with their child. He was never learning. The other son was learning how to play instruments, and it was a wealthy family. This other one was an embarrassment to them. He wouldn't learn. So they gave him to his grandma, I think, or some other family, or they paid this woman. I forget the details. But the point is that towards the end of the movie, you figure out that You thought the whole movie, you think they're one family. Really, the way they behave, they live with one another, they earn money for them, and they help each other. But then you find out that they overthrown out of their families and they've formed their own system for survival. It kind of got my mind thinking, what is really the definition of a family? And I kind of, want to take like the side of the plain devil's advocate. If you look at Nabi Nuh alayhi salam, his story, his son, he was his son, literally his son, the son of a prophet. Why did God make it a point in the Quran to say that he's not from your race of Muhammad against father? It's a bad doing, it's an evil act. So it's like God is not even referring to him as a son. So does God see relationships essentially as transcending even the blood family relationships? Or does he allow for that to remain? He wants it because it's healthy for society, and it must remain in the society. And only exclusions, like once you go against God, then that takes precedence over your family and blood ties. Then you lose the status of being even a family member. But as long as you're God obedient, then family like blood relations are very important. So that's something we can explore later on, I think. But I think it's good to think about this kind of stuff. So we have a lot of hadith that talks about the rights of a father, the mother, the family, your blood. So it's a raham. This is very recommended. It's almost wajib even in some situations. And there's even spiritual effects if you connect to your family. The more you visit your family, the longer you live. If they, have a relation to the physical world, not the spiritual world. You have a longer life if you connect to your family. So we have a hadith like that. But this is just an idea to think about. So basically what Islam came in is sever the relationships. Then what it probably did was it tried building the relationships from bottom up again. So basically the essence and foundation now is God. After that comes, let's say, family relationships, family loyalty. That comes next. But in order to establish God as the foundation of all relationships, then you have to remove even the family ties, family bonds in that society's mentality. You sever it all, you delete it. In the Lord Ta'ala say, before you start your suluk, before you start moving towards God and journeying towards Him, التخلية قبل التحلية. You have to empty. You can't begin journeying towards Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala with a lot of dirt inside of you. This dirt is unorganized. First, you have to clear out everything. If you're trying to clean a kitchen that you haven't cleaned for a year, you can't, if you want to sit there trying to clean with the dirt inside of it, then it's going to take you a long time, and you might not even get to the whole thing, not even clean it properly. But you remove all the junk out. You take it all out. Once you clear it all out, you clean it up, then you start adding new things. So maybe because it's necessary to do this, this is how things work in this world, how the human mind functions. As long as you leave a little bit of what they have in their minds, and remember, this is something that they've been living with, ancestors have accepted the system. For generations and generations, this is how they live. They're born thinking and raised thinking that my tribe is everything to me. So to come and remove a social concept that's been ingrained in these individuals in such a short period of time is a very, very difficult challenge and task to do. So maybe the easiest method was to remove all the affiliations, even family ones, and establish God as the core concept or reality that we base our relationships on, and then we go and build upon that. So then you say that family is important next, unless it goes against God. So that's what the Quran says. Obey your parents, unless they command you to do something against what God commands. So here you establish God as the foundation, and then everything else comes after that. So here, these are narrations that show that the challenge the Prophet had dealing with asabiyya. We're trying to imagine the scene in the scenario that the Prophet came in. These people have asabiyya. So we have a hadith where the Prophet says, whoever is bigoted or partial to a false cause or incites partisanship around himself and his own causes, the not binding him to his faith and is untied from around his neck. So basically, whoever has asabiyya, then he loses faith. Faith and asabiyya cannot be one person. The Prophet in another hadith says, whoever contains even a mustard seed's weight of partisanship in his heart, that's how they translate asabiyya here, Allah will raise him on the day of resurrection among the tribes of pagan and clannish Arabia. If you have even that bit of asabiyya, then you have not entered Islam. You'll be resurrected with these people who are living based on that system. And another one, the Prophet says, one who pulls to partisanship is not one of us, nor one who fights for a bigoted cause, nor one who dies a partisan. So the Prophet was obviously challenging this concept, trying to alter it, trying to change it, and using severe language, very harsh language over here. Because if you gave them a little bit of leeway, I mean, this was everything to them. Their loyalty to their tribe, their loyalty to their own members of family and whatnot was so strong that you have to use a very harsh type of language with them to separate and to disconnect it. So if the Prophet just said, it's better for you guys not to be loyal to your tribes and be loyal to Allah because Allah is greater and better and your tribe is like, if he's trying to argue that way, they might not really be convinced by what he's saying. But the language that he used, that faith is untied from your neck. You'll be resurrected with out of the pagan era. You're not one of us. You're not part of this Muslim group that's forming right now. So basically, it's excluding you completely from faith. That plays a big role in removing that. Imam Ali alayhi salam also speaks about this because Imam alayhi salam had to deal with this problem. The Prophet passed away. And immediately after he passed away, those people who, kind of went quiet about this whole tribal affiliation thing during the Prophet's life, suddenly now that the Prophet is gone, this whole, effect that he brought with him is gone now. Now they feel like this person in authority is gone. Now we can go back. There's no one here to tell us what to do and what not to do. So we know when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that faith has still not yet entered your hearts. And that's sort of how it was. The Prophet passed away, and immediately tribal affiliation came back. Who's going to lead the Muslim community? Oh, bring the tribe of so-and-so. Bring the tribe of so-and-so. The tribal mentality began to come back. Imam Ali had to deal with that as well, because we believe that he's the continuation of the prophetic message, and he faced the same problem because he himself transcended that. He never had a issue. So he condemns Iblis as being the father of asabiyya and bigotry and partisanship. If you look at Walāyah as well, Walāyah, actually brought back the whole concept of tribalism into Islam again. Inheritance, the son, monarchy, Bani Umayyah, Bani al-Abbas. Again, you find the tribes coming back into the Islamic world. The Prophet came to remove all of this stuff. But immediately, it just, came back on. That's left for history. But the Imams suffered, they faced that. That was one of the problems that they have to face and challenge. Because the Arabs were able to let go of that. It was so ingrained in them. It was so important that it just went silent during the Prophet's time, and then returned. So now if we want to go to the Quran, and we look at the verses, what I tried doing was I tried to survey all the verses on Walāyah. So anywhere that the root Walāyah is found in the Quran, I put it under a certain category. So some words in the Quran, they have wali, have nasir that comes after it. Waliyu and nasir. So this is important. Why does God always tie nusra with wilayah? In one verse, God says wali and wa. Wali and wa. Wali and wa. One verse. So basically defender. We have the concept of helper connected so many times. So we have the concept of defender used once in the Quran. Wali and shafi'ah. three instances where this is used as an intercessor. Waliyun murshid, a guide. One instance. And then you just have wali on its own without being connected to any other concept. Those are the verses that, you can review them on your own. But we see that here, waliyun al-nasir is the most common found in the Quran. Connection. So it kind of gives us an idea of what God is trying to put in our minds as Muslims when we think about His wilayah, think about what wilayah essentially means. Like it always comes with help and assistance from God. So this is just a quick survey. I just put verse numbers if you want to look at them. You can go home and look at the verses and try to analyze them. When it comes to shaitan and wilayah, this verse, for example, talks about shaitan and having fear. Shaitan instills fear in people. Even in your journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you have a sort of fear inside of you, that might be something that's satanic, something that's trying to push you away from tranquility and God Himself. So what you should try doing is you should try removing that fear from your heart, to be more tranquil, more have more certitude in your heart. Satan instructs His awliya. In the Quran is that there's a relationship between shaitan and his followers. And it's not like someone outside of us that we say, oh, he has a team called shaitan and his followers. We could be his followers as well. So if we obey shaitan, we obey Satan, we do evil in this world, basically we're doing it under the instruction of Satan himself. Those who don't believe, God has made Satan his wali. God is saying that He Himself has made shaitan, maybe existentially, the wali of those who don't believe. Then we have people that they themselves took shaitan as their awliya. So are these two different things or the same thing? One time, this refers to people deciding that shaitan is their wali. And here, God is referring to He Himself making shaitan the wali of the disbeliever. How can we reconcile these two thoughts and ideas?
I thought right away of how that's kind of a style of the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will refer to the same thing in separate verses and attribute it. Like, for example, Allah takes the souls when they die, and then Malak al-Maut takes them. So it's the way to resolve the contradiction is that Allah, in both cases, but in one, using Malak al-Maut. So it could be like bi'idhnillah kind of thing, right? Where God is the ultimate cause, but then there's
the immediate cause would be
like a temporal
people.
Yeah, but it's all ultimately taking place with God's authority, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a good way to resolve it. Because this would open up a lot of questions here. God, predestination, justice of God, and things like that. They come up over here. Seems like this. I think the Urafat enjoy this verse more. They like this verse more because they see that God, they resolve, obviously, they don't believe in predestination or anything of that sort, but they like the attributing everything to God. They don't see it in a negative way. I think a theologian would have a big issue. For him, it's a concern. Because all those other theological debates come in his mind. Divine justice, predestination, that kind of stuff, that you're always busy with. So they'll try to resolve. Maybe someone who's more spiritually inclined might understand that God being the ultimate cause of everything. So He's not necessarily predestining or making it happen, even though without Him it wouldn't happen.
So if you reverse it, right? Like if a person takes Allah as his wali, Allah makes Himself your wali, right?
So if you take God as your wali,
yeah,
God will make Himself your wali.
right? Like,
Yeah.
so it's like they took shaitan as their, so the 30, they took shayateen as their awliya. 27, we made the shayateen their awliya. You know, like it's like they, of their own free will, made that decision, and then Allah allowed it to happen.
That's interesting.
So for it's kind of the reverse, though. It's almost like it almost seems like if that's the case, verse 30 should be verse 20. You know what I mean? If you're thinking of it tomorrow, like in
Maybe I can pull up the Quran here.
I was gonna say that.
Sure.
Sorry, I don't mean to derail.
No, it's interesting. Here, let me open it. Is it showing on the screen? The whatever I'm doing?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so is it 7:27, right? Araf. Oh, no, it doesn't have the Arabic. If you can pull up the Arabic for us. 27. All right. Did you pull it up in Arabic? Do you mind reading it, please? Yeah. So begin with.
يا بني آدم لا يفتننكم الشيطان كما أخرج أبويكم من الجنة ينزع عنهما لباسهما يريهما سوآتهما إنه يراكم هو وقبيله من حيث لا ترونهم إنا جعلنا شياطين أولياء للذين لا يؤمنون.
So this is, we have these major things, the awliya.
Right.
And those are only. Okay, so God is doing this here. Maybe we can connect it to the things that were before.
I was
right?
So what jumped out to me right away, let not Satan tempt you. Right? And then it's almost I wonder if you can connect tempting to La yu'minun.
If you're tempted, and you actually go with the temptation, in a sense you've lost faith in that sense. At least for
well, depending on how you think of Iman.
There's a theological debate on whether while you're performing the sin, do you lose your Iman or not?
Right.
There's a group of people that believe that.
Right.
So then the next verse was verse 30, we said, right? Well, when they commit an indecency, they have our fathers practicing. Say truly, God commands not indecency. You say of God that which you not know, which you know not. Say, my Lord has commanded justice. Set your faces toward Him at every place of prayer and call upon Him, devoting religion entirely to Him. Just as He originated you, so shall you. Some He has rightly guided. Some are deserving of error. They took Satan as their protectors apart from God, and gave them rightly guided. So you know that verse where God talks about if there's a sin that's from you, and if there's a good that's from Him. Associating Himself from.
And then it goes on to say everything is from Allah.
Yeah. In that sense.
Yeah, that's a good one. But it's, even the verses about, I know Alama talks about this in Shifa'ah, right? Some verses say there's no Shifa'ah, and then Allah says there is Shifa'ah, right?
Yeah.
So Alama says, well, the ones that say there's no Shifa'ah, it's talking about in and of itself independent from God.
Yeah.
And then can take place, but only when you bring Allah into the picture. Yeah.
So in a sense, it's like God is going in and out into our world,
Kind of, yeah.
into our own theater, telling us what's going on with us. And then he speaks as the person who's outside of the theater, who's looking above everything. Puppets show him here. Is that what they call him? Moves the puppet here, right? So when you're sitting down and you're just looking at the puppets, you think it's his own world or the characters, but you don't see the puppeteer behind. So maybe when God is describing from your vision, you took that, let's say, the evil puppet or actor, right? But then who's really behind everything? Who's the cause of everything to happen? He's causing the movements to happen. He's causing things to happen. But who's making the decision? You're watching. You're deciding. This is the one I want to follow. This is the character that I like.
In the realm of choices, right? Because that's what we're talking about. Let not shaitan tempt you.
Okay. Yeah.
They took the shayateen as their awliya, right? So it's talking about decisions.
Yeah.
What's the verse? Right. So like you can't will anything unless God, so it's like even our decision making takes place under the authority of God, even if we're choosing that evil, right? It's still bismillah. So maybe that could even tie in here as well.
Or like there used to be books when we were kids when you would read and they'll tell you choose them, but you're really not choosing. You're choosing, but within
the choices that the author has determined. Yeah.
Now they have a movie that's like that.
Oh,
you have to choose.
I didn't see it.
Make a decision, and the rest of the movie plays according to your decision.
Girls too. There's a survival one. You have to choose.
Yeah, so sort of like I'm just trying to, like God. I mean, intentionally makes that, difference. One moment he puts himself as he wants to. Here he's really accusing himself or attributing the making of saints as the awliya of those who don't believe to himself. He's taking that upon himself. I'm the one who's come. So what is he establishing here? Some sort of dominion, some sort of, in a sense, like he's doing it on purpose. Not just putting it there for. It makes sense for us to say that people have chosen that. Even if God had kept it at that, it would be much clearer for us. It wouldn't get us into this whole free will predestination thing. That happens when this comes into play. I mean, it kind of forces it on us. I wasn't thinking of predestination, God, when I was reading this. But now that you said this, you put it in my mind. This is like an intentional thing that God is doing for some sort of reason that he wants us to maybe realize the divine intervention and everything would be the ultimate purpose. Maybe it gives us to reflect and ponder on things. So there's a slide or two left and we'll be done. So the relationship with people over here. God says that there are believers. The categories that God makes us all. Believers, then there are the people of the book. There are not. There are believers who are muhajirun and ansar and other categories. They fall under the category of believers. And some of the people of the book are believers. Some are believers. The mu'minun includes some of the people. And you have the non-believers. Also, some people of the book are non-believers as well. So these are categories that we need that we're going to go into until the next few days. What do you, the family context? So we saw over there that there was wali, the transcendent family, Awliya. When we have a wali in the Quran that's discussed in these verses, wali is a person who's killed. In the tribal system, if you killed someone, you have to pay them. If it was by accident or you settle it with money, the shedding of blood. So God refers to that as well, and He calls that person wali. Now, this wilayah is very different than the other wilayah. God trying to connect them all together, or He's just using a concept that maybe we're familiar with. It might not be related to those other verses. These are also verses that have wilayah in it. You can read them on the screen, so we'll skip it. It's going to be on the slide. Summary: God of believers, God is the wali of the believers in this world and the afterworld, not just here. The Prophet is the wali of the believers. The believers are awliya of each other, and those who are God's followers are also awliya. Shaitan, Satan, and non-believers have no wali in this world. God says that. And they have no wali in the hereafter. But then He says Satan is their wali. So is He trying to not give Satan any existential significance? Truly, you might take him as a wali, but it's only your imagination. He doesn't really, he's not a wali. He has no authority in the realm of existence. That's why the shaitan, even himself, he says, he disassociates himself from the people. Is it because of that? But this also needs to be resolved. The verses that talk about this, maybe next week I can bring them up, where God says that they have no wali in this world nor the hereafter, but then the shaitan is their wali. Why does he make this? What does he say? And the Quran describes that shaitan has awliya. So in one sense he denies the wilayah, in another sense there's wilayah. So in a sense that God says that there's nothing but God in existence. In another sense he gives other things outside of himself also some existence. Is it only imaginal or is it real? Can we differentiate on that level, or is it we have to differentiate in a different way? Let's see how many. Oh, we have. Okay, we have 2 more slides. Friends and enemies. The term "wali" in the Quran or referring to God is often juxtaposed with support and enemy. So if you're a wali of God, you have support of God. If you are shaitan, you're an enemy of God. God is a sufficient supporter for believers. The greatest enemy of humans is shaitan, Aduwwun Mubin, not just Adu. God will protect the believers from him. So once you enter that realm of wilayah of God, it's like you enter this protective sphere. A bubble where you're protected. Once you go out of it, then the shaitan and the evil spirits or whatever it is, you're prone to you're vulnerable. You can take over you immediately. And so that's why certain sins, for example, were forbidden, because the hadith say that if you perform that, then you lose the spiritual protection. Satan is able to penetrate your faith or your heart much easier. So drinking alcohol, for example, maybe eating certain animals, has that effect on the individual. If you drink alcohol, let's say, it might have a spiritual effect in the sense that it makes you more vulnerable to go into the wilayah of shaitan. Once you go there, then God cannot protect you, or He will not protect you. Non-believers are also described as enemies in the temporal realm. God and the believers are united in a bond of mutual friendship and support against a mutual enemy, the non-believers. And the true belief requires that the division between friend and enemy be clearly drawn. So this is what we spoke about not too long ago. A person who is part of a family bond may also be an enemy. Because when you believe among your spouses and your children, there is indeed an enemy unto you, so be wary. This establishes the ultimate bond between God and man and human being. Man and man, human and human, based on wilayah, and settles the bond created by humans, his family, tribe, etc. The relationship should be wilayah, and therefore we see the formation of a new community, which we will go into next week. The Imams use this concept, notion, to start forming from above at its own time, forming a community based on different levels and degrees of reconciliation, and new concepts are introduced, and a new vision is introduced for the. So we'll end it over here. And Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu